Hey there, I'm looking at this Midi keyboard that has Bluetooth and an internal battery. On the back you've got a jack for a pedal, you've got a 1/8" jack for Midi. I'm not sure which type it is. There's two different types. Power switch, a USB-C to charge it with, and an indicator to show you the charging. You've got a pitch and modulation wheel. And everything is shown on this very small but usable OLED screen, and it shows you the values as you change them on here on the knobs, but also it shows you the velocity of the pads, which is nice. Now, first off, I say it's really well made. Actually, it's as well made as some of the top brands, Novation, Akai, etc. You've got 8 knobs. They're not particularly wobbly or anything. The pads aren't too spongy. They change velocity nicely, as I said. So the build quality is really good, and more importantly, the Bluetooth connection is solid. As you can see, there's pretty much, well, there isn't any noticeable latency really. It's immediate. I've got it attached to the Mini Moog app, and I've got it on 64 and at 48 kilohertz at the buffers at 64, and it's immediate. I can't notice any low latency unless I really focus, but certainly your brain will adjust completely. So most people aren't going to notice anything, I don't think, unless you're really sensitive to latency. So 8 knobs. You've got 16 pads actually, because you've got this bank A and B. Now, what I will say about the knobs and the pads is the editing is pretty much non-existent. On the knobs you can only change the CC, and on the pads you can only change the note number. You can't say change the pads to CC values, which is a terrible shame really. I don't know whether there's a software editor. Not as far as I can see. There's nothing in the manual. So if you want to get into those deeper functions, this probably isn't the keyboard for you. For instance, I mapped out my controllers here, not encoders even, but I wanted to map the pads to the switches on the Mini Moog, which I couldn't do. So that's a bit unfortunate. I'd like to see some sort of way to change them to CC values. Okay, so let's go through the functionality. As I've been talking about controls, we'll start there. You've got controller setting, and basically you can just turn each knob and change the CC value it gives out, and that's it. There's no other controls for changing the encoders. And likewise with the pad, you just keep your finger on the pad, press the pad you want, and then you can use the encoder above to change the note number that the pad gives out. And that's it. Unfortunately, you can't change the colour of the lights or anything like that. So it's fairly basic in that respect. Now, where this keyboard really shines is the sequencing, and while it's not groundbreaking, it's got a couple of cool features. So I'll just get onto this section here. Before I get onto the arpeggiator, you've got octave up and down, and transpose in semitones, I think, and octave, and everything's displayed on the small OLED here. You've got a tab tempo button, so you can tab tempo. If you keep your finger on ARP, you can change the functions for the arpeggiator. Some are duplicated on the keys and the encoders. I'm not sure why. For instance, latch is, you can turn on and off with an encoder, but you can also turn it on and off with a key. I'm not sure why we needed to duplicate that, and we could have had it do something else, but there you go. So here you can change the chime division, the swing amount, and although you've got swing here, these are set increments. With the swing, with the encoder, you can change in fine increments, so there's some purpose there. You can change the mode of the arpeggiator. So up, down, the order you played it, random, etc, etc. You can change whether it's synced internally or externally, and this switch here changes the BPM. So if I put the arpeggiator on, can slow it down if I want it to go more slowly. There we go. And if you keep your finger on arpeggiator, you can change the note increment, quarter notes, triplets. You can change the order from here as well as from the encoder, and you can change how many octaves it goes through as well as on the encoder. Doubled up again there for some reason. So that's the arpeggiator. You can latch it on and off, which I like, which is fairly standard nowadays. You don't have to get a peg and peg a key down like you did back in the day. And I showed you the controller settings and the pad settings, which are very basic. You've got note repeat, which I don't think is going to work. I had it working a minute ago, but I think this patch is in legato, so it's not going to repeat it. Yeah, unfortunately. Oh no, it's because I'm trying to do it with the key. Yeah, it will repeat it if I press the pad. And again, like I said before, the screen shows the velocity you hit the pad, which I quite like. I haven't seen that on the keyboard before. Maybe on some electrons, but that's about it. So if you keep your finger on note repeat, you can change the increment at which it repeats at. So this will repeat it faster. And if it's repeating quarter notes, so that's no repeat. You've got bank A and B buttons, so you can go from bank B pads. So you've really got 16 pads, not 8. So there's 16 notes you can choose from. So obviously you can assign that to a drum rack or whatever it's called, or whatever your software is calling it. And you've also lastly got a function from the old MPCs, and this is very much stylized on the Akai controllers, I think. You've got full level, which will just play the pads at full velocity. So you might want to do that and then edit the velocities manually later. And that is pretty much it. Unfortunately, there's not any deeper software or editing menu in which to change the controls. I'd like to see that. But it is priced similar to some other controllers that do a lot more. So from that point of view, it seems expensive. But then you have to remember you've got Bluetooth, which is solid on this. So that you're paying for that, and the internal battery as well, which you don't get on a lot of the big brand controllers. So that's a real boon, I think. If you just want to grab an iPad and jam on your bed, this is perfect. And also the build quality is up there with the top brands as well. The velocity response from the pads, the controllers feel solid. I mean, it's a huge downside that they haven't got scaling. They really need to get scaling on the controllers, because it is really no fun going through it, 127 values really slowly. But other than that, because it's got the battery, because it's Bluetooth, because it's well built, I think it is worth its money. Sure, it hasn't got the features that the big brands have got. It hasn't got the software to change things like pads to CCs. But you may not be looking for that. If you just want a solid keyboard that you can map a few controls to, play some drums with, and you don't have to worry about any wires, and it's going to play with no latency, then it's well worth it. I'd certainly be purchasing it for that reason alone. So it definitely gets a thumbs up from me. Just what would just take it over the edge to being, a really, really nice controller would be just to get these encoders to have scaling, so they, go through the values quicker when you turn it quicker. Other than that, recommended. Hey there, so I'm just going to add on the end here, I forgot one of my favourite things about this keyboard is this little loop button, and it basically just plays a Midi loop, which is pretty cool. So while your finger's on it, you can play what you want, and when you take your hand off, it will start looping it. So you keep your finger on the loop, and then as soon as you start playing, it will start recording. So that's quite cool. You can run that into a sequencer, or you could sample it or whatever, or just play around with different ideas. I haven't seen that on the keyboard before, so I just wanted to add that on the end. Thanks.